We getting some weird friend requests.
You grew it out, huh? But you look different. What?
I have to shave every day. If I don't shave every day, I'm gonna have a beard by the next day. So I have to shave, and my my barber is like a um he crazy. He doesn't like he normally don't like all the routines that they're saying barbers have to do now. He's been doing all that. Like he has like a sterilizer and he puts a different cape on each person and he wears like the black vinyl gloves on like he does all that already. So
Okay.
this shit right here, he's not opening up. I don't know what he's doing. Um I suggested an OnlyFans page for him, but I don't know if he took my advice, but I know he not cutting
Mm.
hair, so I don't trust anybody else at this point. I don't know how long this will get. It's actually longer than it looks, but trying to keep it up.
As far as I'm going, bro, it won't go no further than that. I tried.
I was already, it was already a beard before this started, and I should have gotten him to shave it
Hello.
all off, but I only thought it was going to be 2 weeks.
Okay.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Are we ready?
You're not brand new.
You said what?
You're not brand new.
I didn't see it. You gotta like blow a whistle or something. Welcome to the Artist Exchange Radio Show here live only on BeExposedRadio.com. It's me, your host, Nate. I'm here live from my boudoir of
Mm.
sorts. We're still quarantining. I don't trust it. Be Exposed is going to play it safe and be responsible and not, open outdoors just because it's time or they say it's time. But shout out to El Mayor here in Baltimore who say, I don't give a fuck what the governor say. I'm going to keep these doors closed. Thank you for being responsible for the rest of us in the city and not just, because the governor feel like they don't want to spend no more money. But today we'll have a special conversation. I have to say, Monday show, I didn't like it. I didn't like Friday show of last week. And I have made a decision. I don't care what you're selling. I don't care how many followers you have. If I don't like your energy, I'm not going to welcome you into my platform because it can do more harm than any good that could come from it. And I learned that valuable lesson. And I'm not judging people. I'm just saying if I don't feel like you're ready for uh, this type of platform, I can't do it. Like it has to be a shared experience and not just a bunch of me giving. And it's not even about support or sharing it out, but I didn't have the best experience. I took myself outside of what my character is. No, don't get me wrong. I can turn up and I can go off with the best of them, but that's not my nature to go to that and to spend an hour and a half going off. That's not I don't think I've ever done that. Maybe once or twice, but it was more so an exchange conversation. But with us today, we got Mr. Damonn Hollywood joining us today. He's been out and about with the protesters and just getting a different perspective than with some of us who have been home watching a lot of it. I put myself up to that. I didn't feel like it was
Can I
safe,
interject real
really.
quick?
Go ahead, I'm listening.
You just gave me this soul food place to go purchase from. Apparently,
I
they
did.
have been closed and removed from Dash. Just that
Why?
fast. I was trying to put that order in, and it just was like, no.
So
Hmm.
you just go bash them. They may be
I'm
closed,
not.
but
No,
some
I'm
of
not
them,
bashing them. I'm just trying to say. I'm just putting it out there, just in case it may be an error or racially
but
and
some of them closed, or like they can switch it on and off. It's not like until they close.
okay.
Like some of them can turn them on and off,
Do they
but they have
close
to.
early? That's what I really wanted to know. Maybe they just
Yeah, they
close
may have
early.
to close early.
Okay, that's all.
Uh, Sorry about that, maybe tomorrow. But we got Mr. Hollywood with us, and I asked him to join us because I wanted this another perspective. I've talked to quite a few people who have been in different spaces. I've been helping out with a couple organizations that I work with, supplying like maybe water and stuff like that, finding ways, and we've been donating to kind of help in our own way
Hmm.
and doing research on some of the happenings that's been going on, and some of the people who have already been arrested and going through that process. It's a stressful process to have to help somebody get out of jail because there's a lot of waiting that goes on at central booking. So if you've never done it, if you don't have patience, it's not for you. Let somebody else do it. So that's been my way of helping. But others have been out there. Uh, Hollywood been Damonn's been taking photos and videos and kind of capturing the moment. And we've been kind of using some of your material. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. You're
Sharing
good.
it out and such. Just making advertising your skill set, sir.
Hey, you're
Uh,
fine. I'm with
but
me.
I noticed a lot of people trying their own way of doing it, and I just hope that everybody is remembering that despite this being a man-made obstacle, this coronavirus, COVID-19, in my opinion, that's my opinion, not Big Exposures, but my opinion alone, I feel like it was a science experiment going awry. And despite that, it's still real. It's still killing people. It's still harming people. And because you don't hear about the numbers, don't mean that it's not people spiking. There are a number of nursing homes and facilities that are getting in trouble because they're not properly reporting the information
Okay.
and giving out the numbers because people don't want to lose business. People don't want to be sued, so on and so forth. So they're just uh, considering it a death. So we have to really be careful and be mindful that this is still real. There has been no vaccine or cure put out there. There are some options, but I don't think people are really pursuing them as legitimate sources. But I just want everybody to stay safe. But I called up Damonn because I wanted just a understanding of what it felt like. What does it feel like to be in the midst of it? There have been protests all over the country, all over the world, actually.
Right.
And we're going to talk a little bit about that and some of the ramifications, like Miss Owens getting on the news, bashing George Floyd for being what she calls a martyr, which is a wrong word to be using in this moment. But a number of issues surrounding this, and there's some black male issues that I thought Damonn would have you know, opinion about. How you
Um,
been doing, sir?
I've been doing good, man. Staying positive, just staying focused for real. Trying to do the right things. Help people out much as possible.
Hmm.
Um, you talk about the protest. Actually, when I first did the protest, it was on a Saturday,
Right.
and that night was pretty. It was pretty crazy because it seemed like the police force, like they gonna do what they're gonna do. They taking their orders and whatnot. But I feel as though that sometimes it seems like the system, they don't care, because I'm like, if we're doing a peaceful protest or something like that, if we're doing a peaceful protest, why are you bringing out canines? You know what I'm saying? Because if you let that dog go, it's going to attack us off the jump. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Why are you shooting? Why are you shooting stuff at us? You know what I'm saying? If we sitting here and you see us with our hands up, I was front line, hands up. You know what I'm saying? And they sitting there holding whatever they was holding to shoot us with. I got hit with some stuff and we got missed a little bit, but you got the little idiots in the back that's always going to be trying to do something dumb, throwing stuff. But besides that, it was a peaceful protest. And far as like the following day, which was, my fault, the day before. What did the day before? We had a peaceful protest that morning. We walked the streets and everything like that. Everything was good. No news was there. No, they wasn't recording nothing. But as soon as something go bad, they want to show up and start recording. So like one of the issues was I saw on the news was that they were saying somebody beat up the newscast. And I was there when when they so-called said that happened, which it really, they didn't beat up the newscast. He just showed up and he wanted to start recording all the chaos that was going on. And the people was like, no, we don't want that. You know what I'm saying? Why are you here recording? She wasn't here recording none of the good stuff. So why are you here now? Go ahead. So what they did was they was pushing them away because we can do our own recording. We can do our own broadcasting and let you know how good we're doing. We don't need y'all to come here or y'all just want to show somebody just broke the windows out this van. Those people that's doing stuff like that, they probably not even from Baltimore. They probably hired to do stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? And that's what kind of makes it bad for the people that's protesting in a good way. You know what I'm saying? It makes us look bad because they keep doing the dumb stuff. And you have to pretty much weed out which ones are doing that. You know what I'm saying?
Was it was it apparent that there were a group of people that were causing like a little trouble versus the people who were peacefully protesting? Was there a difference, or did it just seem like everything was mixed in?
It was like he wasn't a group. It was like certain ones. It wasn't even like technically a group. You'll see
Hmm.
somebody from a far distance over there throw something, and then you'll see somebody from over there probably throw something at the police, like water bottles. And we telling them like, chill, no, don't do this, because y'all doing this. We the first ones that's going to get hit, not y'all.
Right,
You know
right.
what I'm saying?
Were they? Because on the news they started showing, or on other people's feeds, I started seeing images of non-black people, younger white boys and some girls busting windows, but none of them were black, and none of them looked like they were a part of the protest. It was just on the outskirts of the protest. Is that what it looked like even here, or
Yeah, even
was that?
here, it was just like now after the protest, you'll have their own certain group that'll go off and do stuff, and
Right.
they just do their thing. But the crazy thing about it, the businesses in on it. They leaving bricks in front of their windows so they can do vandalize their properties and whatnot, stuff like that. Like we walked past a couple of properties, they just had bricks just laid out, just wait for somebody to pick them up and throw them inside the window.
I
So
mean, when
they
you say this bricks, was it? Did it look like construction or
no,
just?
they was perfectly placed for somebody to pick them up and throw them through the window.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
like that's what's crazy. So they trying to make it seem like, oh yeah, they out here doing this. Nah, they all in on it. They all in on it.
I mean, for us looking from like our social media platforms or the news, it was very apparent in many cases, and I'm glad that there is this dual media being shot, because the normal media, the ones, the conglomerates, are showing you the destruction and the chaos, but a lot of people with their personal outlets are being able to show you, like yours are showing us, like the gentleman who claimed that that with the bow and arrow, like
Correct.
his lie was quickly debunked because we saw the people who did attack him, and we saw what he did to provoke them to attack him.
Correct.
So the lie was that it was a couple black guys that did it, and it was quickly debunked. And then we saw a lot of videos from other cities like Philly and some in, I think it was it California, where there was people like breaking down, in New York actually, where people were busting open windows, but it was a bunch of what we would perceive as skateboard kids that
And,
didn't look like they were a part of the protest.
right. And the crazy thing about it is it's not just the kids that was doing it. It was
Right.
police officers that was going past busting windows. I didn't say it was going on in Baltimore, but from looking at the footages and the news and everything, and some of the people that things were sending me privately, it was actually police that was going on busting windows. Like just recently, I just saw where I think it was in New York where they busting somebody's an official, a top official's office, and they was just sitting there, just taking naps, drinking their coffee, doing all types of stuff. Well, this is just vandalism. Like
It's
these,
hard to know what to really believe and what not to believe, because social media and media, because now the professional media companies are getting their clips and their sound bites from those clips, and running those or chopping and screwing those. But it's really hard, really, for me to know what to really believe. I understand what's going on because I know what's being reported in terms of organizations bringing it out and organizing these rallies. But one thing that I do want to say, I don't feel like a lot of those organizations have planned effectively for this, where
correct,
they're rallying people up and showing them and demonstrating how we're going to have this peaceful protest. So those individuals look stark
mhm,
different from those people who just coming out to just create chaos and havoc.
correct. Because
Uh,
oh yeah,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No,
No,
go ahead.
no, I was saying just to piggyback. Well, like first the we when we had our protests, I think it was last Saturday when we marched on 83 and through downtown. Now that was actually peaceful.
Mhm.
That was actually planned out, and I believe it was through 5 girls through text message, and the word just spread it out like that.
Were
We
there
actually,
instructions? Were there
there was
time
instructions.
and place? And
There were instructions. We had the people in the front. They had the loudspeaker. The people that had the white X's on their back was the ones that would guide you. Then you had some people that had different colors on that had the water if you needed stuff like that. There was some people walking
right,
around having snacks, and they were saying like, if you have your mask, make sure you have your mask on. if you start doing this or anything like out of the ordinary that can cause problems or just cause us not to look right, like we're not in unity, you're gonna have to step outside the march because we're not about that. We want to make this short, make this peaceful as possible because we're talking about George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, everybody that just been gone or passed by the police brutality. We don't want to. We don't want to like. All right, 2000 was it 15 was enough. They saw how chaos was, so let's show them something different. And I was my fault. I was in California when that happened, but
but even with Freddie Gray, it was the same thing. And see, your perception of what happened during Freddie Gray was what people are perceiving now. Correct. There were a handful of people who were looting and creating conflict, but correct. Most of the protests were peaceful because where our station is, a lot of them walked through there and ended up at City Hall. So a lot of them were peaceful. They marched along 83 and came around and ended up down, by State Center. I mean, not State Center, the mayor's thing, City Hall. Yeah, but a lot of that was peaceful. And then there were pockets around the city that got violent, that got, out of control, where they started burning down the CVS's and businesses of that nature. So there were still differences in how people were doing it. But again, I don't feel like all of them kind of made the effort to be that, as you said, as organized, because people, they just angry and they're going off of what they're watching. And if you watch it enough, you right. gain a certain level of anger, and then you go out there and you want to start busting things up. You see right. a brick on the sidewalk, you will throw it.
Right, because they just frustrate, like you said, and they're not really thinking.
I wanted to understand what it felt like out there, and were there different organizers that you would, because it was different days. It has been different days where people have been gone, because it was something up here by where I live at off of Charles Street where I saw a lot of them started. Mm-hmm. And they started to gather people, but were they all that prepared, or were some just a notice that they sent out, or
Saturday when that was definitely prepared. Everything was good. Even Just Hilarious was there. She was there to support the Black Lives Matter movement and everything like that. The first one on Friday, that was just pretty much getting the ball rolling. The very first protest, because we actually did. We went to businesses. We went to Fells Point, and we went to the major establishments that was making the most money. And we was letting them know, like, we're not going to go for this. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, right. I'll be sitting here, and we sat there, and we just yelled out every name of each person that was killed. And we actually did that in front Central District, in front of the police station headquarters. We got they got the commissioner to yell out every name that was killed. But we were just going to let them know, like, our voice is going to be heard, and we can do this. We can come together peacefully, and we can make an impact.
It's such a weird time for this to be happening, though, because. Correct. It's on the brink of, kind of mass craze already, because we're in the middle of this pandemic. But for this to happen, William says you went through the training program during your short stint. Can you recall any events that proved they could all be in on it? Oh, those bricks are spread out all over throughout the country. Wow. I don't know. In terms of so you're speaking more so on your citizen eye right now, but in terms of, like, you had some experience with the justice system. Can you speak to what you think is happening right now, if you feel comfortable talking about it from that perspective? Like, we see a lot of stuff going on. There's a bunch of different things. Like Carl just said, those bricks are spread out throughout the country. A lot of people are reporting just piles of bricks just popping up out of nowhere.
Correct. I don't know what to say. Speaking from that side,
like, I don't want any secrets unless you know any. But no. Just from that eye that you have, what do you think is the underlying current of this? Like, what's going on? Is the police department getting lax? Are they not carrying it right now? Are they not the same thing that they did right after Freddie Gray, where you clearly could see they wasn't responding?
Freddie Gray, when that happened, I believe that the department wasn't ready. and I feel as though that they can just offer better training and everything like that, and better
Hmm.
for better situations to avoid things that like that happened with the George Floyd situation. Because
Right.
I've never seen somebody train when they pitching your knee in somebody's neck. Maybe in the stock of the back, but not on neck though. Come on, that's just like overboard. And I believe that
Right.
some officers let their badge get to them. You know what I'm saying? They hide behind that shield and they just think they can do whatever they want.
I I spoke on a number of different shows that I was on, and I
Oh,
spoke on what force continuum. What I learned that the force continuum was, and that was the order of procedures that it takes when you first are in contact. The police comes in contact with a civilian, and there's trouble, and it tells you from step one. Oh, I think it's like 10 steps, uh, based on the weapons that they have, of what is supposed to be used first, and how deadly force is the very last
it,
option that you have.
correct.
Uh, is that a part of? Is that the initial training, or is that something that is uh,
No,
talked about
that's
throughout?
definitely a part of the training to the threat level. So depending on what you use for what they're doing, like say such as if a person has a knife, um you technically like 20 feet, anything less than 21 feet, you can actually use lethal force, as they say.
But is it supposed to be your first option?
No, it's
I
not
think
supposed
it's
to be your
supposed to
first
start
option,
off with
but
verbal warnings.
but it also, yeah, you do definitely give verbal warnings. You definitely speak before you do anything. Hey, stop. Put your hands down. Put your hands up. Hey, you know what I'm saying? I got a taser. I will tase you. Hey, stop, stop, stop. You definitely always keep the communication going on between whoever you're talking to. Um, yeah,
But in the moment of it, I understand. Like I've only been in a few like physical fights in my life, and I know in the moment, if you didn't come into that situation with a certain level of calm, you're gonna panic. And
correct.
they say a scared person is the worst person to fight with.
And that's it.
But
It all depends on the officer, in my opinion. I believe it depends how scared is that officer. You know what I'm saying? And for the situation he's in, is he
right,
so scared that he wants to use his weapon, or
hmm
does he feel confident enough? Okay, I can pull out my ass right here, or I can tase him, or I can use, you know what I'm saying, like, stuff
but
like
what's supposed to judge where you are? Like you can't just jump to pulling your gun out. In
that.
every situation that we've seen,
No, it
they've
depends on the
jumped to
threat
pulling
level.
their gun out.
I believe it depends on
Taser.
the threat level. Like it depends. Like me, I wouldn't pull my gun out for something stupid, or like you got a brick in your hand. I don't need to pull no gun out for no brick. For what? You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Woo, dug out the way or something. You know what I'm saying? I believe that right there, it all depends on the person and how
See,
they feel.
and I think that's the problem that us civilians are having, because you are jumping to deadly force in
Correct.
situations that don't call for it. There's a meme circulating right now where it shows the gentleman who shot up that church,
Mm-hmm.
the young white male that shot up the church, and then there's a random black guy, and the white young man says to him, like, "What are you here for?" And he tells him what he was like. I had a busted tail light, and he's beat up and he's shackled and like from the back, and then the black young man asks the young white man, "What are you here for?" He said, "I shot up a church," and he has just like the basic vest on, and he's handcuffed from the front, and it mirrors what actually happened to that young white boy, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not clear to us as simple civilians, and I only know the force continuum because I did a play and we had to learn it. We were cops in it. We had to learn what the process of breakdown was,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really scary to learn those facts because at that moment of me doing that show, it was clear. It was right after Freddie Gray when we did that show, and it really after Sandra Bland, after the two of them, and it was really apparent that they are skipping all of this. And we had the former police chief out in Pittsburgh, from Pittsburgh, come in and tell us, like, it's a part of your initial training, but it's not like police officers are getting an annual refresher course from their basic training.
Correct.
Now that now military or Marines are coming in and giving them certain levels of training, because that's what the funding is supposed to cut off, is that because they're not using it effectively if they're all jumping to deadly force. But I guess the understanding I'm looking for now is um, what I mean, you say it's based on person, but if you have a person that you don't know what the problem is, or you're walking into a situation where it's a simple, you know, car like a torch, and
Mm.
you're pulling them over for that, and it ends up with them dying. Like I don't, and I tell people I'm still stuck with, out of all the ones that I've seen, my attention is still stuck on Philando Castile, because
Mm.
we saw from beginning to end what happened. We have the footage from his cam where he's pulling up on him, where he's still outside of the car. We have the girlfriend's footage from the whole ordeal, from the time he shot him, walked up to the car, to the time he shot him, to the after effects of him
Right.
them putting her into the car, her into the back seat. So we see the whole story, and that one incident froze me in time, because I don't see how that ended in him dying. I still don't. Even if he was nervous or whatever, he could have told him stop,
Correct.
get out of the car. Like, he could have did any of those things, and
Correct.
he shot him right in front of us. And we've seen this way too many times. So me seeing George, I'm not saying I'm numb to that, but
Mm.
that didn't shock me.
Right. It's other things that are there that's crazy.
Yeah,
And I feel as though that officers should be trained better in handling certain situations. And I feel as though if you're really scared and the first thing you want to pull out is a gun, you shouldn't be a cop in the first place. You know?
is
And
that a part of the test though? Is that part of
for
them looking at you and grading you in terms of you being prepared, or
no no one is never really prepared because you can go through all the training you want and whatnot, but it's not going to prepare you for the streets or what you're going to go through when you really get out there. But it's the only thing is you just got to remember, like it's pretty much in your training. I believe they can train you a lot better in certain situations because even when I was in the academy and they was teaching basic martial arts. But I was looking at some of the stuff and I'm like, man, this could get somebody killed, or it's going to vice versa because you can go try this and it's not going to work. And next thing you know, you pulling out your gun because that move didn't work. No,
right,
I feel as
right.
though they can have better training and everything like that.
So a gentleman on Williams says on Facebook says, I'm aware that the taser isn't reliable.
It depends.
Um,
It
Go ahead.
depends. The taser is reliable. The X26 series is reliable, but it
Is that the
also
one that we see them shooting, and
correct.
then it extends like this volt of energy? Okay.
Yes, and the taser it helps to a certain extent, but also it depends on the person and his level of pain, or if he's on PCPs or even some other type of drug where that is non-effective to him. Because
Mhm.
one call it took us like 9 officers just to get one person, and no physical harm was happening. We just really had to grab them. They really are strong. So I can understand when someone's high off of some drugs like that, but it's just
Right.
you just have to find another way around it besides trying to I can't get the word incapacitate the person.
All right. So and that becomes another form of, well, I think what what I'm looking for in terms of an answer is, okay, so now we understand case by case scenario. It really calls for a certain level of force, but is it procedure to always start from the top of that force level and go
No, it
through?
depends. It all depends on the threat level. To be honest with you, but you don't start from the gun and work your way down. You start from the lowest and work your way up. You know,
Right,
because you start from the gun. What is there left to do? You done shot him. It ain't nothing
right.
left. He
And
died.
that's my point. Like, if they keep starting with the gun, where else can they go? They can't go once you pull a gun with somebody, you can't go backwards from that.
Correct.
Like, if you pull a gun and then put that away and pull out a stun gun, like, that's not
And the reason, like, if a person pulling out that weapon, obviously, is a level of threat that some. Like, if it was me, it would have to be a really serious threat level for me to pull out my weapon. And at the same
right.
time, I'm not going to be so close. I'm still going to keep my distance so we both can be safe. Because I might not have to actually use lethal force for this person. I can actually, all right, you know what? He's calming down. I can put my weapon back. I can holster my weapon, and then I probably can switch to something different because how depends on how he's coming and what he has in his hands or anything like that can be considered a threat to me where I'm fear for my life.
Right. But in this George case, we see him already in the car,
Correct.
already handcuffed,
Correct.
and they pull him out. I think that is down. We understand that. I think there's understanding in every situation is different, so it may require one or two more officers. It may require, a level of force that's not necessarily that's gone beyond you just talking to them. But when they're already in the car and you pull them back out, and many of us only saw that one perspective. So we only saw that one officer. We didn't see the other two.
Correct.
That was also on top of him.
Correct.
So I think that's the level where, okay, so this isn't about fear anymore. Now
I think that would be personal. I think that was a personal vendetta between them two because they work together. And even if you pull someone out the vehicle, even when you load a prisoner in the vehicle, they're supposed to be properly secured. First of all, you know what I'm saying? Hands in their back, seatbelt over them, so they can't do that much wiggling or anything like that. And if it does cause for that, why not just put the handcuffs put some cuffs on their ankles, some ankle cuffs, and put them on their handcuffs. If those cuffs are not working, put some flex cuffs on them, just so he won't be able to do that. But you don't have to actually sit there and with your knee on. It's like two people can do that. He's already cuffed. What much can he do? You know what I'm saying?
But it wasn't about him being cuffed. He was already in the vehicle, and they pulled him out of it. And we see that in many situations where a situation that does not need to escalate.
Correct.
And that's the word when we're dealing with force continuum and the processes that the police officers take to de-escalate. I don't see any of that verbiage being used or acted out. But in terms of them trying to de-escalate, I don't see that at all in any of these situations. If anything, it's the police that is then escalating the situation.
Correct. He escalated because once he said, I can't breathe, he's not going to be trying to do nothing. Once you get off of him, all he want to do is, he just want to breathe. He just want to catch his breath. Come on, the situation was under control. He wasn't even doing nothing really after that. You didn't have to sit on him that long, you know what I'm saying? All that was just.
But he did, that's the problem that I'm saying.
That's bad policing.
Right, that's the problem that I'm saying. He didn't have to sit on him at all. He was already in the vehicle. You had already arrested him and put him in the vehicle. So when you pulled him back out, I don't understand what they were trying to do.
I don't understand that either, unless he wasn't properly secured or something. I don't know what happened inside. Like, only thing I can probably come to mind if the scenario is okay, he's probably kicking his legs too much. All right, let's get him out. Let's reposition him in there or whatnot, something like that. But besides that, I really didn't see no reason. Only reason you put him in there, make sure he's secured, you transport him safely to get his next destination, and you take him out.
It's weird. To me, it's weird. It's scary. It's uncomfortable to imagine where we are in this world where this keeps happening. I decided to do a little research on the Breonna Taylor story. And that was, again, like the abuse of force. And I've been in a situation where they had the wrong house or a person, my mother had moved into a new home. And I had come over to help her after a surgery, and I was trying to get the children ready for school in the morning. And I remember police officers coming to the door and wanting to get in the house and see if a certain person lived there. And I was like, well, my mother didn't have this house very long. I don't even know who that person is. And them being really adamant about, well, this person used this address. And I'm saying, well, you can clearly see that it's still boxes.
Come back with that warrant. They can't just come up in your house like that. And even for them to come up in your house like that, they got to have a signed paper by a judge. You know what I'm saying?
They kept saying, this was, I can't remember what state this was in for Breonna Taylor, but they kept saying a no-knock, what they call it, with the piece of paper. I forgot the name of warrant, a no-knock warrant. So they didn't have to present themselves. And I was like, and it's a real thing. In certain states, they don't have to, they can get that type of privilege to be able to just come in without notice. And that's what happened, where the gentleman, the boyfriend in the situation, did not know. He fired his gun. They allegedly he hit the other cop in his leg, one of the cops in his leg, and then they shot 22 rounds into the house, striking Breonna Taylor 8 times. And whatever everything that happened after that was very unprofessional on the police department's behalf. But
What you can't,
coming into it, you already were wrong.
right? And one thing about an officer, once an officer hear another officer shoot, they automatically going to start shooting off the jump. Probably not even. They probably don't even see their target. Like, why would you shoot him somewhere when you can't even see what you're shooting at? That's dumb.
William says, so it's fair to believe that officers are not properly trained when it comes to judging the threat level.
Uh,
Or
it
they just
depends.
going off emotions,
It
feelings.
that all depends. Like, it's all up to you. Where's your threat level? How threatened do you feel? You know, that's where it comes.
But see, that should be a gauge. That should
Yeah,
be,
I mean,
and there
it is
a gauge,
but
they don't follow that.
no, because some people are, some officers, no lie, are scared. You know what I'm
Right,
saying? So
right.
the first thing they want to do, yeah, I'm grabbing this. You know what I'm saying? I believe some offer great training. Like, now I can say the Baltimore City does have some great training, but I feel as though that they can train more in that area as far as when it comes to a threat level or proper steps to take, or what should they do if this happened or this happened. But at the same time, they can tell you all that and teach you all that. But once you get in the real world, it's a different story. You know, they forget that and they're going to be scared because I've never really been in a situation. I've been in training, but oh my goodness. You
Right.
know?
And that's the part that's scary to me because as two black men, we're sitting here. Um, and I think this moment has put a certain perspective of fear in me that I never had. I'm not, it takes a lot to make me scared of anything.
Mhm.
But the fear in me is, or the hesitation rather in me is being perceived or being judged. There are several clips online where the officer came up, one gentleman came up on his porch and he was out in the yard and thought he was somebody else and didn't look anything like the man. Like, I don't understand where our rights start and
Mhm.
where their privilege starts. I don't, the line is so blurred and you
Mhm.
don't understand as a citizen, what are my rights right now?
But
And do my rights cancel out your fear or your perceived authority in this moment?
how I see it sometimes, I feel as though how they look at it, I feel that they look at us like we don't have rights. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, forget your rights. I'm going to do what I'm going to do anyway.
Right.
And I feel as though that if we want to fight the system, we got to start learning in the system. We have to know the system. We got to start knowing what can we use against them. What, like, you know what I'm saying? As far as like,
But right now, the only thing that we're using against them is a civil trial.
right.
Because even after Freddie Gray, the attitude that of the police officers walking around, like it was clear that they did not give a fuck. It was very clear. You know, even when it came to people looking at them or walking too close to them, it was a level of, and that's when Marilyn Mosby had pulled out those 6 officers. So after that happened, police officers got so lax in the city. Like they weren't responding to calls on time. They wasn't when they did respond, it was so blasé and so I don't give a damn.
Because I feel as though the officers, they stopped caring. Like, all y'all gonna do is snitch and think we doing this anyway. So why would we police y'all if y'all not really, y'all don't want us here? You know what I'm saying? Ain't everything we do or everything we trying to do, y'all make a complaint about it. So what can we really do to police it out? And I feel as though,
but that shows you that they're not doing their job.
exactly.
It shows you that they're not doing their job to begin with. If they already have that attitude, because if you feel like you have more power over me just by being a police officer, and I can't tell you how many times I've been faced with this. Like I haven't been directly affected by it, but I've been in a situation where standing on Penn North, waiting for the shuttle to come, and I literally a man maybe like 6 feet away from me get stabbed and beat up and robbed, like just that quick. And the officer and I stayed with the gentleman only for the officers to ask me for my identity. And I was like, I don't think you need that. I told you what I just saw. Like, that's all you need. And him being very dismissive of me and very arrogant and very pompous at that point, because if I'm not willing to tell my story and give them proof of my identity, then I must have had something to do with it. So the other officers told me, please just walk up because this officer is he has it out for you now. So you please leave this space. And I felt like, no, I'm waiting. I'm not going to walk an extra mile to catch a shuttle because this officer can't control himself. And I
Correct.
felt like I was standing in my rights in that moment. And luckily, other officers kind of pulled him away because
Correct.
they saw I wasn't moving. But I've been in those situations. I have uncles that are constantly getting into trouble. So I've seen the law system from the courtroom to central booking to Jessup. I've seen it in many different areas, and I've grown never to trust the police officers. And I grew up in the age of officer friendly, where we were supposed to, give reverence and respect and love to police officers. But I grew up in a different world where we didn't trust the police officers.
Right.
So I don't understand how they're going to get that back. I don't know what type of leadership is going to take to kind of transform how they do things,
Be more.
so we can feel more comfortable around them.
I feel as though that if we aren't gain our trust back, that's gonna take a lot. It's gonna take a whole lot.
Right.
But if you start somewhere, be more involved with the community. Seem like you care, something or really care. You know what I'm
Are
saying?
you talking about the citizens or the police officers?
I'm talking about the police officers.
Okay.
They I believe a lot of officers, what do? You just see them ride past, they don't stop, they don't get up, interact with people. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Let them know, like, look, I'm here for you. You know what I'm saying? I'm here to make sure things go right. And you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to make sure your day stay peaceful as well as mine. And
But a lot of them don't live in the city anymore. A lot of them, and the ones that may live in the city, a big majority of them aren't from Baltimore or Maryland.
Correct.
They brought in a lot of officers with incentives to be Baltimore City police officers or around the places. That's a big argument from a lot of individuals that their officers aren't from there. I know a lot of people who I know from New York. They say they used to know their officers. Now these people don't even speak their language, versus not even knowing the community that they're policing in. And they're just moving in and being a part of it. William also says, what are your thoughts on patrol officers having mental inspections weekly or even daily? So my thought on that is, and again, I did a lot of consultation in terms of training for a show that I did. And one of the things that was said to me, officers don't get psych evaluations unless they've been shot at or if they've actually killed somebody. That's normally the only time that they receive any type of psych evaluation or are offered therapy. But it's not like, hey, let me bring you in right now. Let me see where you are. Let's have a conversation with you randomly.
Right.
And I think that's a union thing where they aren't allowed to do random checks. They got to be playing, or it has to be after some catastrophe, after they've killed somebody, or their life has been put into jeopardy.
Correct.
Is that? I'm asking a question more so than I'm giving the facts of what I was told, but the actual information, is that the only time they get that type of help?
I don't know. I mean, from my perspective or from things I've seen, yes, that's how it's seen. And I feel as though, like, through the course of a year, like, from each, like, officers, they should pick out a district and, like, all right, like you said, let's go through this and see where you at mentally and see where you stand at. Because I even still have flashbacks of some of the things I've encountered when I was, you know what I'm saying? I still remember the hostage situations. I still remember walking in the room, seeing this guy hanging. I still remember some of the shootings and the murders of seeing people just laid in the ground. That stuff do play a mental part on you, but it's also where you're at as a person. But sometimes, yes, you can. I believe that some people should go see psychs, or at least once a year or something. If being a cop, you should at least go see someone so you can talk to and at least just get some things off your mind.
Benjamin Pressbury says the police are the only gang in the world that is above the law. It is that way because the FOP has pockets deep enough to buy them back on the streets. He also says to get police reform, we have to first get their unions reformed. They give rewards to cops who kill. It's I'm uncomfortable. William says, "What are your thoughts on?" He just asked that question.
Yeah.
But that I'm just like they give random drug tests if you work for Amazon or this company. I think in a situation where every day you're put into high intense situations, there should be uh, routine surprise psych eval tests. And I think what would happen was police officers will be under a certain level of, okay, they're watching us. So I got to make sure I'm following the rules so I don't get pulled. Like you get an audit every week, and this many police officers got to go in and do a psych eval. And it's not just how you feeling or a real psych evaluation like
Right.
they would give to a criminal that just murdered somebody or something. I think that's something that would help them. But Mr. Pressbury, shout out to him. He's a elder in this Baltimore community in the theater world here. And his son is the gentleman that wrote the book on uh, the father and son relationship. He wrote the children's book.
Okay.
And I, one of the things that I'm wondering is if the union is the problem because every in the case of the six officers here with Freddie Gray, that was a big speaking force, a big part of them not getting charged was their union spoke up for them and kind of defended the process that they took, and putting him in the back of that truck and him asking for help and them not giving it to him and him eventually dying by the time they took him out of the truck.
So normally,
So
if you want to ask for help, you definitely call a medic off top. You're supposed to. Like, look, I have a person such and such, and you have an officer follow him down to the actual
mhm.
hospital, and then you do your watch there until he get his
but
medical.
they say that after someone has been killed, but
Correct.
they always have an excuse for why this time they didn't do that.
Right. Like if
And
someone's saying they not feeling well to the point, are you serious? All right, I'm gonna call the medic for you. They go in there and
right,
wait. You're gonna sit here and wait for the medic to show up.
just in every job that you have, whenever somebody complains or is sick, or you always follow the proper procedures to keep yourself in the clear.
Correct.
But it seems like there's a vendetta against criminals, against citizens versus the police. Like it's this power struggle, this vendetta that they have against the people that they're serving or arresting, or if they know the person. I don't know if it hasn't been made clear if these two, George and the officer, had come across each other before.
They work together.
Was
They worked at the
that
club together for
they
years.
work at a club together?
Yeah, George Floyd and that officer, they worked at a club together. They knew each other, so he knew who
A
he
club?
was.
What kind of club? I
I
didn't hear
think it was
that.
like a regular club. It was just a regular club, if I'm not mistaken. But it was I'm gonna have to. I'll send you the information once I get it again. But I remember
So
saying,
that officer was like security and
yeah,
George may
yeah.
have worked there.
And George Floyd did security there at the club, while the officers did the club and whatnot. So yeah, he did. He actually did know George Floyd.
See, now that adds a whole nother layer to me now because that's something that's being connected with a lot of other incidents. Like, what's the relationship with that person
Correct.
to to the officer? Like, what's the connection? That's what I'm always listening to hear, and that's gonna make me do a little bit more research to find that out, or you can send it to me and I
Right.
can read that because this felt different.
Right. Because I said that was more personal what he did.
Yeah,
That
it felt different. People kept making notice that he had his hand in his pocket,
he did. He did have.
and it just felt too comfortable. Um, and I'm not saying that he intended to kill him, but putting that type of pressure on somebody's neck
He knew
can
what he.
cause he could have snapped his neck.
He knew what he was
That
doing.
man could have ended up paralyzed. Or I'm as a black man, I have been uncomfortable in this world for like the last 5 years, more so than I've ever. One thing when we walking through hoods or walking through a city like Baltimore, you got to watch out for
Everything.
suspect, individuals or suspicious individuals. But I have been more worried about the system, like finding some way to pull me over. I've worked in Cherry Hill for the last year, and I would go to work, get out of there. I would not linger in that neighborhood. I was born in that neighborhood, so I understand it. But it was, I made sure to get myself out of Dodge. Or if I'm out, which I'm rarely out, I normally have a destination, and I'm here and I'm there.
Right.
And it's gotten a little uncomfortable for me as a black man in this space that we're in right now. To no matter what we do, we're always being judged by our past,
Correct.
our the perception. So not only am I being judged by past things, I'm being judged by the perception that you have of me. So
Correct.
as a black man, I've always felt like I've had to kind of shrink myself. I'm a bigger guy, so I felt like I had to just shrink who I was
Mm.
to make other people feel comfortable around me. And that's gone now beyond just white women. Now I got to make that. I got to be that around children and white men and my own now
Correct.
black women. I felt like I had to shrink myself in terms of you being a black man, a young black man in this world right now. How do you feel? How what's your relationship to the world right now?
I'm black and I'm proud. Yeah. um, I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna speak up. I'm gonna fight for what's right. I don't really know how to explain that. I really don't care what these cats think. I'm just gonna fight for what's right, and I'm just gonna keep pushing. And they're gonna have to accept me or not. It don't matter.
Are you worried that you'll ever so knowing a lot of the processes of the police department, are you ever worried that you'll get pulled over when you're out here at these protests?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm just ready. You know what I'm saying? And you're not
When
gonna
you
lie.
say ready, what do you mean by that?
Like when I mean ready is like I'm ready for them. Like why? Like you're not gonna just say what you want to me and not me speak up. You're not gonna just lock me up for no reason if I didn't do anything. You know what I'm saying?
So
Like I'm
what do you know that we don't know? And I'm not being
one,
facetious. I'm being
for
honest.
one. A lot of people don't know
Save
about
somebody
plumber.
right
A lot of people don't know about plumber versus state. Plumber versus state is actually where you have the right to resist an unlawful arrest. You know
now.
what I'm saying? And a lot of people don't know that. And you see, there's a lot of people that did get wrongfully arrested, and sometimes an officer can get hurt in the process of doing that. But that's the whole reason for a plumber versus state, because if an officer do get hurt in the midst of them doing an unlawful arrest, oh well, you know what I'm saying. But you're gonna have to really prove that in court. But you know how the system is; they're gonna try to
Hmm.
not let that work. But yeah, this is like that's why I say it comes with people knowing the law and knowing your rights. And once you know your law and you know your rights, what can an officer really tell you if you abiding by the law that's in the guidelines of those rights?
We have another comment from William. How can we push for regular mental evaluations because a lot of these cops are loose cannons? And I think we were just in the midst of it. We just had a primary. I
Yeah.
think the election is a great starting point, but you have to be mindful and be consistent in your contributions to your community in terms of following up with these lawmakers. Um,
Correct.
and I'm gonna come back to what you just said, but we just elected a slew of people. Well, in terms of like our mayor, we've had our primary election where we've uh, voted in, not they've won yet, but we voted in our Democrat and our Republican Party individuals, and I'm seeing a lot of the people who have been put into positions, and I'm wondering if they have the know-how to be able to even address these issues. We have
Correct.
a first time, one of probably the city's youngest mayor to ever be elected, being put into an office on the break in the midst of a pandemic, and he'll be possibly becoming a mayor at the tail end of a pandemic and rebuilding the city, but also in the tail end of police reform. Like, what is your plan? And I don't see that plan in his. And I'm not attacking him personally, but I think to answer William's question for myself, and you can answer it also, Damonn, but how we have to start with our elections. You know, who are we voting into office that control these different parties or who have relationships, legal working relationships with these other entities like the police department? And what is their strategy? You know, for me, Sheila Dixon had the best strategy and the best relationship with our police department. And I don't see that coming from Brandon. After some of the antics that we've seen from him, I think they're not going to listen to him. They will do what they do and toss him to the side if he wins.
But we want change. I'm saying we want change. And just we got to start showing up to these meetings. We got to voice our opinions. We got to use our voice. And how can we want change if everybody keeps silent? You know. And I know it's easier said than done.
Right.
But we got to move somewhere. You know, we got to do something.
It's. And I keep saying it's scary, one, because, you know, we've been in the house. So all of these things are being, you know, done under the guise of us not seeing it or us not physically being out and about. And what I'm worried about now is, will these protests and these wild looters, and I don't want to put adverbs or adjectives in front of their description, but that's what it sums up to. A lot of this looting and I don't want a systematic way of doing things to be judged by that instance, and then you create all these other protocols, and then what had just happened gets pushed under the table because, see, this is why we have to react this way, because they're out there doing these things. That's why I'm leaning on the side of peaceful protests, pulling out dollars out of the economy, or, as we did with this crab company, we totally shut down their business. So doing things like that versus just destroying our property, that they're going to then use against us, in terms of why we can't afford things and why we have to pay money to this because we can't do that. And I'm just worried that police reform won't be on the table, or the union that represents, I think they call the FOP, will create conflict where nothing gets accomplished, like they did with Freddie Gray. All those officers are back working now, all of them.
Right.
I think one chose another job, but all of them are back working right now.
Like this looting that's going on, honestly, I believe they hired. I'm gonna send you a link to that. These are hired people that's going around doing this stuff. I mean,
now,
people that's
I haven't heard. Is it here? Has it happened here?
Yeah, I'll send you the link. Once we finish, I'll send you the link to everything as far as that. And these are hired people to do this stuff. They hire people to go ahead, loot this, or start this type of commotion, or start this, and that's what I'm like. The system don't want us doing it. They don't want us to see us move forward. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And
but I asked you the question in the beginning. The people that you see,
they look like outsiders.
So you saying they look like outsiders?
Look like outsiders. They don't even.
Is anybody confronting them?
Some people have confronted them yet to get out of the city, but really, the only thing I remember them doing I've seen them do was when a dude threw the firework in the middle of the police crowd, they yanked them up and threw them to the police. That was about it. But besides that, I mean,
if they're working with them,
I forgot the group name. It's this group of guys. They walk up, they got hoodies, but they ride around protecting the city, they say. And they don't like for us. What they do is they looking out for the looters and stuff like that, so they won't mess up the city. I forgot the name of this whole group.
Are they black or they white?
They were black. It's all black.
Okay.
They ride around on bikes. They're very uniform. They definitely in sync with everything. And what they do is when people are out protesting at night, or what they do is they actually watch out to see who's going to start this riot, who's going to go do this, and who's going to do that. And what they do is they actually put a stop to that. And this is what's going on in Baltimore right now, because I actually sat down and talked to one of the guys. I'm just mad that I can't remember the name of that organization.
Are they out of Baltimore or?
Yeah, they're out of Baltimore, dude. They're out of Baltimore, and they do a good job. It's just like citizens police, but from Baltimore. So they are doing that. That is going around Baltimore. They are trying to put a stop to all the people that's looting and doing everything like that. So I can't speak up on that part.
This is weird. I don't. I know that a lot of the groups. There were a lot of anarchy style groups that were being blamed also for doing a lot of the destruction because they aren't necessarily attached to the Black Lives Matter movement, and they're kind of attaching themselves because they wanted to act out in this way, and their organization may not be as large as a Black Lives Matter. So them attaching themselves to that kind of kills two birds with one stone. It kind of puts the sunshine on to Black Lives Matter and says, see, they're just another terrorist group, but yet at the same time, they're getting to do a lot of destruction of what they call the system while kind of destroying the name of Black Lives Matter. In terms of us moving forward, how do you see us moving on from this? Because we're still in the midst of a pandemic. And how do you think we should safely continue the fight and move forward?
Oh man, one, be safe. Use safety, be safe. It's gotta fight. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know we're in a pandemic, but we just gotta fight.
But what does that mean? Because we keep saying fight, and I think younger people are hearing that, and they're.
I'm not talking like physically going in throwing blows, but we gotta like go against the justice system. We gotta. I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it. It's like
it sounds like what you mean is that we have to be consistent. Is it fair to say that we need to be consistent in our protests? Or because I worry when we say fight, the wrong ears hear that and they go out and do that.
Right. I'm not talking physically fighting for the ears out there. I mean, we have to just step up and do what's right, and we have to be consistent. And if we don't show consistency in what we do, they're not going to take us serious at all.
Right. And I agree with that. I definitely agree. And I understand why people have that perspective and that point of view. I just worry that we aren't organized enough to make this consistent. Look, we stopped. Look how soon it took us to stop fighting after Freddie Gray and all the other various people, Sandra Bland and Philando Castile. We were dying down our fight for the gentleman that was killed when he was out jogging. Like that was starting to die down before the quarantine even started, and then this happened. But it feels like we get the momentum, and now that everybody's getting a little bit of money in their pockets from stimulus and unemployment,
they're gonna try to throw money in there to keep you quiet. Like, I'll slide them some money real quick. That'll calm them down. That'll keep them quiet for a bit. No, man, thank you for the money, but I'm gonna keep talking.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
What speak to the level of unity that's going to be required for us to, as Black people. Now, I will say my argument has been we as Black people need to get our script together, our game plan together before we start looking at allies and people to support us outside of the Black race. Do you agree with that, or what would how do you feel about us being our level of unity right now?
As a Black people, it's good and it's bad. I think we need more unity. For one, we need to stop this Black on Black killing as well. And if you stop the Black on Black killing, we can have more Black people on this world fighting for unity. You know what I'm saying? We can all come together. And it trips me out because I feel as though we can do good. Because think about the Oklahoma bombing. We had Black Wall Street. We had our own banks. We had our own school. You know what I'm saying? And if we can stop all this violence with each other, you know what I'm saying? We can actually start to build, and we can start to build these schools, and we can start having these recreations. We can start having these places for our culture. You know what I'm saying? And I feel as though until we can actually focus on the main objective and stop all this other outside stuff, then it's always going to be shaky. You know what I'm saying? So I think we just need to all come together and really we got to really look at the bigger picture and stop killing each other.
And I I'm not the Debbie Downer, but I'm seeing, even with this young lady, Miss Owens, who's getting out speaking against the bad reputation of George, uh, them in instances like that where we don't have our own game plan together. So how can we go out and petition for the president or the governors or the mayors or the city councils or the senator to fight on our behalf when we don't have our story together? This person is coming out saying this, and then this individual is saying that, and then this group is saying, like, we don't have our story together. So they're not taking us seriously when real change, real laws, real uh, thank you, William and Tifa. That's one of the other groups that
Yeah.
they are kind of
Trying to say that's like
name.
a domestic terrorist group now.
But it's not. It's
Right.
actually something totally different. But they've used that, the right has used that as a weapon against Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Uh, um, I don't know what it's going to take for us to get on the
A
same page.
round table. We all need to somehow somebody can get on the news and say, hey, look, we having a round table here. This date and this time. If you're really about this, let's all come together and let's have it. You know, it can be an open field. Have some big giant speakers there and have that person there speaking, and we all can come together. We all can get on one accord. I mean,
It's weird though. It's very weird though that we're in this place because everybody wants to be a leader. You know, now the social climbers and resume builders are coming out and creating their frontline perspective. And then you have a lot of people who have been doing the work this whole time that are getting overlooked and not being listened to because they don't have the numbers or the likes on social media. And a lot of people have made a job out of it. And a lot of them, rightfully so, uh, because I believe in paying people. You know, Martin and Malcolm had people supporting them throughout this because you give up your life for this. But there are other social climbers that I don't see any of them right now. I don't I don't see any of the ones who were yelling the loudest and holding up the banners doing Freddie Gray. I don't see none of them right now. Who learned things, but who also had a lot of backdoor meetings that got them certain jobs and certain titles that they don't feel like they need to come down here and continue to march. That seems to be my issue and my uncomfortable level in this because I don't see how we're making a change uh, beyond just screaming. Like what are we gonna get? I need a plan and a strategy before I go out there to march and risk my health, actually, not just my life, but my health.
correct.
And I want to see a plan, a strategy. I don't want to just be holding up no banners
Correct.
and marching from this side of the city to that side of the city, and there's still no solution. I
Right,
don't
like
care how many times 100 black men march down North Avenue up and down. If there's no strategy, if there's no solution after this is over that gets us consistently fighting, I'm not doing it. And I think a lot of the older people have felt the same. Some of them, I'm not gonna say a lot of them, but some of them have felt the same as well. What are we doing? What are we fighting for? You know, are we fighting so this doesn't happen to another black man, or are we actually changing the policies that are right now causing this or allowing this to happen?
correct.
So that's where I'm at with it, and I feel drained at this moment because I think we're back at a space again. We're back at the same place. The only thing that has changed is the brothers and the sisters' name, and that's it. But we're back where we are, and we get so angry and frustrated, and then Bread Bull throws us a couple $100,000 to do some artwork, and then we over it.
Right.
Or they pay for certain things to happen, and a couple celebrities. I saw a few celebrities out there, but they can afford to be out there. They can really afford to have their voice be heard. A lot of us can't afford that because we have to go back to these neighborhoods where we aren't safe, where we don't have the privilege to have a large fan base that we all we got to do is say this happened to me and people cancel X, Y, and Z. But how many times have you gone to those crab houses and they've been rude to you? And it took this right now. It took this for somebody to research his social media for them to shut him down or to cause him to lose so much money. So that's where I'm at right now, and I wanted to start our conversation with how drained I feel. Like my energy feels like I've been depleted, and I've been in a calm space. We talked a couple times offline, and I've said that like I've been trying to get to my calm because I'm not a rah person, but being locked in and having all this stuff going around you, it's getting hot outside, so people will get a little bit more antsier and crazier, and they're willing to sacrifice health and life over a cookout or being around people who they really didn't like to begin with, but they just need a reason to be out. Um, I'm seeing a lot of destruction in terms of with internally, you know, and I had an argument with a young lady last week over, interpersonal relationships between black women and black men. So a lot of these things are, I see people are attempting to have the conversation, but I'm tired of talking about it. I want solutions. I want when I make an argument against a black woman, I'm not accused of being a misogynist or I'm not accused of attacking her. That's a strong word to use when somebody is simply disagreeing with you.
Correct.
Sorry, my allergies are crazy right now, but um, yeah, my energy level is just waning right now, and I don't know how to, you know, kind of perk myself back up. I've tried to change my diet. I've tried to, avoid certain conversations with people, and none of that is helping. But it's just absorbing all of this information, and even if you can't turn the TV off or turn the computer off, you're still being bombarded by people sending you text messages and video clips of another officer acting bad
Correct.
or another individual being killed or slain or this the I think it was WEAA or WYPR.
Mm.
Another announcer was shot. This lady was shot over in Northeast Baltimore, and two other black people were shot in the last couple. Like hearing this is I had the Citizen app. I had to erase that from my phone because every minute something was popping up.
Like ding ding.
Yeah, it was this, and it's in your neighborhood. It's not you got the Citizen app. It's not just citywide. It's in your neighborhood.
That is true.
And it's telling you every little thing that doesn't even if it doesn't make the news. You're hearing every shooting, every stabbing, every robbery, everything, and it's crazy. But I'm feeling a little drained of my energy and depleted of my energy right now, trying to figure out what can I do. So as an artist, you're now getting back to doing a lot of your filming and a lot of your content creating. Where are you now with where are you now with your artistry and how you're gonna allow your artistry to kind of help you
Just do
your part?
documentaries. Right now I was just told through my film director Rod Lopez for New Style Independent Pictures, we actually about to be doing a new film, and it's called Black Men in America. So it's best we just trying to shed the light of what's going on in America right now, and what it's like to be a black man in America.
And I think tons of filmmakers need to do that right now, specifically for black men, because I feel like our story is only told when there's tragedy attached to it.
Correct.
There's no preventative measures happening. There's no subsequent uh, support being given to kind of curve what we're feeling. And I've been having conversations with random people, and it may seem random when I reach out to you, But in my mind, I'm having a conversation in my mind, and I just want to get a perspective from somebody else. And creatively, I'm trying to figure out a way to this how to display that. But as a black man in the world, not just in America, because we get treated like this around the world. Even if we go to Africa, as African American men, we get treated a certain way. They
Hmm.
welcome us, but at the same time, they still side eyeing us. But it is something to be said, and I'm not trying to make anybody struggle less than, but to be a black man and calm or whatever else you add on to that, it is definitely hard. It's hard to be black,
In America.
and you start adding every comma you add on to that only makes the struggle harder.
Right.
And I don't know any other races that can say that.
Like
But
we in the system, they already gave us a negative, just because of
mhm,
the color of our skin.
right.
I
And
definitely
what are we left to do with it? And I think what would be helpful, you know, and I would love to. I may have to reach out to the producer or the owner of the company you work with, just to see like if something like that is going to happen. What does it sound like? What does it look like? They have a new vice president, a new director up at um, the what's the local station NPR station is a black man, and he's attacking some of the internal uh, diversity issues that they have on and even at that programming. And I want to see valuable information being put out there with
correct.
solutions attached to it,
Correct.
and not just I'm gonna give these group of black men some initiatives and jobs. I'm gonna give them a couple grants to see what they can do with it. Because all we're doing is producing a few stars. We got our Condawandi Fidels and this person and that person and but as a whole, we're still struggling. You've
Correct.
allowed that one to get out. The gentleman who took over the grade, he's now a star. So you given him a opportunity. But what about all the gentlemen who were also out there? And it's not about I want to win too. But we're not solving the problem. We're giving, I'm gonna give this person a little highlight. I'm gonna give this person a little boost, and I've done my job. But what about all the other people that are struggling? I
Correct.
don't want to see another person get murdered at the hands of another black man or police officer or a drug or I don't want to see it happen. I'm tired of seeing it happen. I'm tired of that being our narrative. That seems like it's playing on a loop.
Correct. It's like repeats of like slavery movies. Like, come on,
Yeah,
why you keep
yeah.
trying? We know about it already. Come on now, let's switch it up. Let's do something different.
Well, and that's and on. I don't defend that, but
Mhm.
many of our children aren't seeing that.
That's true.
Parents aren't forcing their children to go to DC and walk through that whole museum. You know, I saw I've been to that museum maybe 5 times now, and I've only seen a handful of black people there. I've seen Asians, Indians, Arabs, Africans. I've seen all different races of people who don't live in Maryland, DC, or Virginia at that building.
Correct.
And I don't see enough of us there. I'm not saying we don't go, because churches have went, school trips have went, but we don't have the emphasis on our stories, on our history. And I don't mean to put that one up because there's a new music monument museum opening up in Tennessee shortly. They are hoping to have a real opening, but they may have to do a virtual opening because of where we are in the country right now. But there are museums all over the country dedicated to our history. But it was something about that museum that just told our story in its entirety.
Correct. It's
And
almost
it,
like
it
the
was
Library
it
of
was Black history, but it was just go ahead.
I say it's almost like the Library of Alexandria is telling all our history and all our monarchs and stuff like that. But
Yeah, and even with that museum, it's only a certain perspective. This gave now, granted, this museum is for African American history, so it kind of furthers that narrative that our history started with slavery, but it was so in depth that it forced like you. I've seen people who like the museum is a little bit like the Holocaust Museum, if you've ever been there, it's like a big spiral. Well, the bottom half, the bottom three levels that are like the basement on down, are is built like that, where you're forced to see everything, and you're
Yeah.
going on this spiral, going up, and it really, I've seen people not be able to finish the museum and have to come back at another time to see the top three levels
Correct.
because it's the emotional level. Like they have an actual shack in there. They have the actual casket of Emmett Till, the original casket he was buried in. Like these are actual factual memorabilia that is an actual plane, an actual like all these things that equal to our history. So on the end of slavery movies, I have an issue with white people producing them because normally they always uh, signify or highlight the white ally characters, and it's very little to do with our story. And
Correct.
it's always how that white character came in and created
This,
conflict or created resolve, or how that 12 years a slave, the black characters that was in it wasn't even depicted on the flyers that was promoting the video. What's his name? I can't remember his name, but he was the largest figure in the advertisement, but was only in it for like 15 minutes. So, and then he wasn't necessarily a good character. He
mhm.
snitched on the slave, like, and that's what I want us to take this moment to take control over our narratives, over
Correct.
our stories, over our creative contributions to
Mhm.
this country, and take them back. Sue if we have to, but take them back. I wanted to, before we end, we only got a couple more minutes. I wanted to ask a question on reparations and what you feel life would be like if they gave us each a check
What, at
for
350,000?
$350,000.
Man, still ain't gonna change what happened. I mean, we still went. Well, our ancestors still went through it, and we're still going through it today, just in a different way. I mean,
So they
thank you
just
for
put
the
a
money.
dollar amount on the
Thank you for
struggle.
right. Thank you for the money once again, but it still doesn't change anything that you've done.
Right. If they haven't changed policy with the check,
Right.
it's really, you've made a bunch of people that's gonna go out and spend money. Some
Right.
people will save it, some people will spend it all, some people will save it all, some people will create businesses. So you're gonna see a flourishment.
Same
But if
like this.
nothing has changed,
Correct.
nothing will change.
Right. And if they do get that money, that's the time when we should really start building our culture. That's when the time we should start building our schools. That's the time
But by
we
the time we
should.
get the money, if we wait till we get the money, it's gonna be too late.
Yeah, you start now. You know what I'm saying? Start the
Mm.
process now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree with. It was a hard question because the gentleman Johnson, who once owned, he no longer owns. I think he's a shareholder now. Uh, uh, and BET,
Mhm.
he created a dollar amount, and he created this 350 plus dollar amount for each black person. And one of my fears was what we just said. Um, if they don't change policy and laws, like totally abolish slavery, totally go in and fix the infrastructure of systematic racism and supremacy, white supremacy, it's
Correct.
not going to matter how much money we have because ultimately the money is going to go back into the economy.
Correct.
If it's not fees from the bank or interest that the bank wins, it's all, you know, at some point it's going to go back into a company
Right. It's going to
that
benefit.
is giving money to the other side. My other fear was with this money, what is going to happen to the mental level? Look what happened to $1,200. I saw a lot of the three-wheeler bikes riding around, and I'm not judging what people do with their money, but I'm saying what was invested.
Right.
I saw a lot more people starting businesses, but how much of that money was actually invested in improving what we're doing?
Correct.
Um, so I'm kind of nervous about $350. I would love it. Don't
Oh,
get me wrong.
Well, I would love it.
You know, like most people, when you heard the number, you already started paying off bills and debt and creating a business plan for yourself.
Correct.
But what 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 else?
It will actually help me follow through with the business plan that I already have created or already have manifested.
Is there a mandated accountant that comes with the $350,000?
Right, like this is
You
what
know,
right, or do I
right?
get
Or is it like a trust, or certain things? Like I remember reading that Ivan, what's his name? Alvin Iverson
Mhm.
had a trust fund for when he turned 50. That because he blew a lot of his money, one of his friends thought to create a trust for him where the money will go into a trust. And he blew all his money. So, but he's not 50 yet. So he's waiting till he gets 50 in order to get this trust. But, will it be more like a trust? Will it be like the lottery where you get it over the course of your life?
See, and that's that. By the time you get the money, all that, you be dead by it. That's just like working the regular job and just waiting for retirement.
Well, if we're looking at reparations, now that we put a figure on it, what are the stipulations? How do we get it? Some people choose to live their life and get a $11,000 check every month versus getting a whole 350 because you're gonna waste $350,000. Look how many people go broke and they win the lottery. So I'm concerned. I would like for all of us to get it. And then the last option is who deserves it? Okay, I'm wrapping up. Who deserves it? What qualifies you? Do Africans who moved to America in the last umpteen years get it? Do white people born in Africa that are now considered African Americans get it? If you're mixed, do you get it? Like all these different stipulations. Like who is
or do someone from your family have to been a slave or direct descendant of it or something like that?
How do they prove that? Right. How do you prove that? But we have run out of time. Damonn, it is always lovely having you on, even though you escaped the plantation.
Thanks for having me.
But I appreciate you coming on. And please come back. We want to hear more of you. If you got some clips, send them to us, and we can play them live. If you want to go live with us, I would love to have some footage like that if you want to show. If you are open to it, but again, this has been the Artist Exchange Radio Show, only on BigExposedRadio.com. I'm your host, Nate. We had our awesome guest, Mr. Hollywood, Mr. Damonn Hull, joining us today. Hopefully he returns. I don't think he will. We might see him in another 5 years. But it's cool. No pressure, no pressure. And we have a great lineup. Don't forget, if you want to support the Be Exposed or any of the various shows that we have on here, you can cash at us at $ Be Exposed Radio, spelled out, all one word. And definitely stay tuned. The Artist Exchange Radio Show every Monday and Friday at 5 p.m. Until we're out of this quarantine, we'll be right here in the boudoir. Peace out.
Peace out.
Peace out.